When evoking the idea of a masterpiece, what do you think? Do you think about great classical art pieces, beautifully crafted works of music that'll withstand the test of time forever? Well, we're talking about video games here, buddy. And I can only think of a few examples that truly show off as masterpieces. The problem with video games is that you can never have a definitively perfect or masterful experience. There's always something that can be changed or improved upon, so coining a game as a masterpiece is purely subjective. However, there are some games that do end up standing out objectively from the competition. For me, the only games I've played that I would consider a masterpiece are Hollow Knight, Dark Souls, and now, Persona 4. You could very easily disagree with me either for the fact that I added Dark Souls to my list when everybody won't stop beating its rotten fucking corpse course, or because of the other games that I haven't mentioned. What about Final Fantasy VII, Shadow of the Colossus, Demon's Souls, any of the other Persona games? I simply either don't own these games in terms of FF7 or the other Persona games, or I can't properly play them. My Shadow of the Colossus CD doesn't work, and I can only shoddily emulate Demon's Souls. So I've spent like the past 2.5 hours trying to get this emulator optimized so it can run this game well. And while it does, for the most part, it still stutters, and the audio occasionally stutters, but it used to be like that bad. Like what happened when I broke that wood, but 100 times worse. Or all the time. But yeah, whenever I break something, it fucking destroys the game. Aside from this, you could say that these games I listed all have flaws in some way, making them inherently not a masterpiece, which is where subjective opinion comes in. Then I would tell you that all these games have had a profound impact on me at some point in my life. But if you were looking for objective guidelines for a masterpiece, I figured out a pretty solid rating system for my favorite games. These guidelines are writing, gameplay, aesthetic, and sound design. Basically, does it have a compelling story? In the case of a lack of a story, is it still well written and everything makes sense in the context of the world you're playing in? Is it fun to play? And does it implement all of its mechanics well? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Does it have a nice or unique art style? Does it have music that improves the experience? Is the sound design immersive? In my eyes, if a game excels in all or most of these categories, it is definitely a masterpiece. Now, I know this introduction is already getting long, so I will concise my thoughts on Dark Souls and Hollow Knight as examples so we can get into the real meat of the video. I would regard both of these games as masterpieces because they have a compelling, albeit somewhat hidden, story and well-written lore. They both have a very in-depth combat system that in terms of Dark Souls spans across many versatile weapons and movesets, and in terms of Hollow Knight are implemented incredibly well into its world design. Hollow Knight is a beautifully animated art piece that looks unique and could be appreciated even outside of the context of a game. Dark Souls is an expertly crafted world of interconnected levels that are immersive and fun to explore. And finally, both games have an amazing soundtrack and immersive sound design that perfectly fit their game. Now, these excel in all the categories with few flaws. While flaws are still present, they are greatly outweighed by all the positive aspects of the game, earning their place as a masterpiece. With all this established, let's finally get into the subject at hand. Before I get into the topic of the game itself, I thought I should share my experience with the Persona series as a whole. I bought this game in mid-2019 for the PlayStation 2. Before this, I desperately wanted to play Persona 5, but I didn't have a PlayStation 4. I know that there's a port of this game for the PS Vita, and I didn't realize that it was an enhanced version. I want to play Persona 3 and possibly give the other entries in the series a try, but I don't know if I'll be able to get my hands on them anytime soon. There are also a few other Persona 4 related games that I haven't been able to find anywhere. Therefore, I won't be including them in this review. My playthrough of this game was a little spread out. I'd recently finished the latter half of this game during the past 2 weeks at the time of writing, while the former was played whenever I had the time. Though I have refreshed myself a bit of the early parts of the game while researching for this video. With all that being said, I apologize for the long intro, but I felt like it would be necessary. Anyways, this video will be covering Persona 4 as a solo experience. It won't be covering Persona 4 Golden or any of the spin-offs I had previously mentioned. But after I'm done with P4, I'll talk about its anime adaptation and any noteworthy bonus content I can get my hands on. Now, without any further ado, welcome to the all-encompassing Persona 4 review. We'll be taking a look at the 4 defining characteristics of what makes a masterpiece and apply that to this wonderful game to determine if it truly deserves that title outside of my subjective opinion. There will be no major story spoilers here, however, there may be out of context spoilers, and I have to talk about things that happen late game, but I won't be spoiling anything important to this game's experience. Nonetheless, I highly recommend you play this game for yourself, as it greatly enhances its impact, and it's no fun getting things spoiled before they happen. Persona 4 is very well written, however it harbors a few awkward pacing issues. To begin, the character dialogue writing is excellent. The main cast and story characters all talk convincingly human, and don't usually suffer from any awkward dialogue exchange.
You're not fooling anyone, you know.
Shh, I can't hear what they're saying. Did he say he was interested? He's a guy, and I'm a guy, but he's interested in me? Huh? What the hell are you pricks looking at?
Character backstories are also intriguing, and for some, very emotional. Though this game tried, it didn't end up getting any tears out of me. Ironically, not during its depressing parts, but during the happiest goddamn ending I've seen. This game seriously let me make connections to all these fictional characters as if they were my real friends. Depressing, I know. It's damn impressive, and made for a very bittersweet ending. The plot of Persona 4 takes place in a rural town called Inaba, which the animation pronounces wrong for some fucking reason.
Welcome to Inaba.
Final stop, Yasu Inaba Station.
Hey, are you headed out?
No, I just got back from picking up my nephew at the airport.
After moving here for a year, the protagonist, canonically named Yu Narukame, makes quick friends with a few classmates, Yosuke Hanamura and Chie Satonaka, along with your uncle Dojima and his adorable daughter Nanako. Shortly after your swift arrival in soothing Inaba, a serious series of serial murders begin to happen, and a suspicious TV program called the Midnight Channel supposedly shows the next victim on rainy nights. Now, without all that superficial alliteration, the rest of the game revolves around you solving the mysteries behind Inaba's serial murders and the truth of the Midnight Channel. That being said, the investigation spans most of the time you're in Inaba. All of the writing revolving around the plot and mystery itself, including all of its twists and turns, is pretty good. The only problem being that your character doesn't talk a lot, so you don't have the opportunity to impact the speed of the investigation or the course of the plot until the game reaches checkpoints, which also affects gameplay too in a way, because you spend a lot of time waiting around for story beats if you finish certain parts earlier than your deadline. This is relatively the only glaring pacing issue of the story. However, it's only minor, and the game still lets you make good use of your downtime, which is important in its own right. The most important part of Persona 4's story that blends with its gameplay is that you and your investigation team have to rescue anyone who appears on the Midnight Channel. I'll hold off on explaining any of the non-story related specifics based around this, but it's important to mention these sections, because they often have the most character development and backstory. Through the many battles you face while rescuing the various people that get kidnapped,
Each character that you try to rescue has an opposing shadow to them, which is basically all the person's repressed thoughts. Everyone rejects their shadows, and that leads to you kicking their ass, and eventually that person accepts their shadow as themselves. Sometimes this seems a bit redundant, because it seems like you could be able to stop the shadows from transforming, but if that was possible, there wouldn't be any boss battles. Regardless though, the story presented in these sections are in-depth, well written, and some of the monologues are interesting to listen to. The mysteries throughout this game are intriguing and really rewarding to eventually solve on your own, and the ending is of course fulfilling and way more emotional than I originally thought it would be, as I was connected to these characters through the game's excellent writing and didn't know how sad I would be when I finally left them, which turned out to be even more impactful due to the ending song, which also implemented various themes used throughout the game. All of these came together to make me tear up a lot on the inside, but I was too physically exhausted to actually cry. I feel like I should point out the underlying themes of Persona 4 to avoid sounding like a complete brainlet, because while they aren't exactly overbearing, they aren't very subtle either. Throughout the game, you tend to see the effects that rumors have on people, and mass media perpetuating these falsehoods, along with the theme of the general populace being content with living in a shadow of fake truth. A lot of the plot focuses itself on people facing their true selves, or especially highlighted in the true ending path. It's neat, I guess, but it isn't the most revolutionary theme of a game I've ever seen. I think it fills a necessary void in the writing, as there are only other minor themes of family and friendship bonds being important, all of which are significant in their own right, but nothing philosophically profound. Why the fuck would you be playing a video game for that anyway? I've also forgot to mention a lot of Persona 4's comedic writing, whether it be all the characters on the investigation team playing off of each other at any given moment, a few slice of life events that bring all the people you know together to make you happy, or even subtle things you may pass over, such as being able to eat dirt from the fridge at night. All of these things compile to create a carefree tone to the game that would otherwise be depressing due to all the murder in Inaba.
Well, how do I put this? It tastes really, boneless?
What? That's not a word you use to describe taste.
Which brings me to another topic. This game handles its emotional themes very well and balances them perfectly, always shifting from emotional to relaxed, upset to investigative, and depressing to carefree or vice versa. This game knows exactly the mood it wants both itself and the player to be in at any given moment, and it executes that ambition perfectly. There's also an overwhelming amount of side NPCs that walk around the various locations you can explore. Prior to Persona 4, I didn't know JRPGs had this kind of thing, and I had never seen so many NPCs in a game that had nothing to say, but end up giving minor side quests or having their own character development. Shit's really neat, and when you see a nameless character improve their lives with an item you give them, when all these characters didn't need this much writing to begin with, it wraps up the experience nicely, and makes the world much more immersive. What's better than the minor character arcs though are the main ones. You get the option to hang out with your friends in your spare time, and since P4 is basically a life simulator on the side, you get plenty of time to get close to the ones you like. Hell, there's even a dating mechanic where you can become a man whore and date all the girls in the game at the same time. Can't date the very clearly gay guy though. It's a shame. But in all seriousness, the social link system operates to give you bonuses for getting closer to these characters, so there's a reason for you to do so even if you don't give a shit. S-links work in ranks of 10, so there are usually 10 unique story scenes for each character that are spread throughout each time you hang out with them. The only annoying thing about this though is that sometimes you just get a boring message saying, "You two hung out," and you don't progress at all. I know it gives you more points to the next rank, but it's really annoying when you're trying to finish a social link but can't because of this shit, which happened to me on my first playthrough where I couldn't finish one before I had to end the game. I also find it incredibly funny when you hang out with one of your team members for the first time, only talking for about 2 minutes, but you establish such a deep bond that they'll take a mortal fucking blow for you. Now, these social links seem pretty cool already, but there are probably 15 or so of them in Persona 4, which is pretty damn sweet how you get backstories for all these major and some minor characters. All these S-links are linked to tarot cards, which is a major aspect of the game I've withheld from mentioning up until now, as we're leading into the gameplay segment of P4. The writing segment of this game definitely deserves a check. The best way I could describe Persona 4's gameplay system would be with a bunch of words that I don't understand. It's part dungeon crawler, JRPG, and part life simulator. Mostly because the gameplay in itself is separated between normal things to do every day and things to do inside the TV world where you rescue people. Inside the TV world, you get various dungeons that represent the repressed thoughts of whoever was recently kidnapped, with which you have to traverse through while fighting shadows that roam around tight corridors. After an average of 6 to 8 floors and maybe a few small puzzles, you finally reach the boss. In these dungeons, it's hard to tell if the maps are the same or different each time, as they could be generated in different orders and I haven't been paying enough attention. Either way, a nice mechanic to the dungeon crawling aspect is that you can avoid most of the encounters if you're a high enough level, or can maneuver well, as shadows will only chase you once they notice you, thus presenting something that seems a lot more fair and a lot less tedious than random encounters. Within these battles, you have your team of 4 mechs, which you could either control or have them act freely, each character having unique stats and skills with their personas, with your skill set being the most versatile. There are 4 main elements that a persona could have, with light and darkness as an additional 2 element types, and almighty being another damage type that transcends elemental resistances. This brings up probably the most interesting part of battles, which is that almost every enemy type has a specific weakness to a damage type that you have to figure out through experimentation. This is fun enough on its own, but it gives you bonuses such as extra damage and an extra move, and finally a sweet beatdown if you manage to knock down every enemy with a weakness. I find that the weakness mechanic isn't usually present in boss fights, or is usually less efficient in mini-boss fights, along with most important enemies being immune to light or dark magic, which is focused on one-shot moves. This brings me back to the boss fights, which tend to be survival gauntlets, where the only strategies tend to be maximize damage and evasion rates until the boss be dead. Despite this tedium, the boss fights are still enjoyable, and I'm glad they're not a breeze. Because most of this game was. Now, I don't fully remember if this game had a difficulty option, but I know for damn sure that I picked at least normal mode if there was. After the second boss, this game never really challenged me in the traditional combat sense. There aren't mini bosses you can fight after clearing a dungeon, but aside from the first one, they didn't give me any problems either. Maybe I finally got a hold of the mechanics, or the difficulty curve is pretty forgiving. I do remember the first mini boss kicking my ass, cause it's not like I grinded either. I was at the standard level from just clearing the dungeons normally up until before the last boss, where I grinded so I could fuse high level personas. I did end up dying a few times, but that was only due to the only shitty mechanic in combat being that all your companions can die, but if you go down with all of your companions still alive, you get a game over. I cannot stress enough how fucking stupid this is. One of your teammates even has a revive move, and there are no penalties for them dying. I also cannot stress how fucking annoying it is when you're 2 hours into a dungeon and end up getting killed because your enemies either spam a one-shot move on only your character, or spam heavy damage attacks only on your character, and you don't get a single chance to defend against it. But even though the rest of your team is perfectly fucking fine, you still get booted to the main menu. That's my biggest gripe with P4, as any other mildly annoying mechanic can't compare to that shit, and it's the only thing I really wish was different. Anyways, I briefly mentioned persona fusing earlier, but I'll get into that in a little bit, as I wanted to get into the real meat and potatoes of PP4 to fully encompass the scope of the gameplay sphere. I've brushed up upon the social mechanic during the story section of this essay, but I wanted you to fully understand how it integrates into the gameplay. Not only do you have time to hang out with all your cool friends, this game runs each day of a regular life where you do such exciting things as going to school, shopping, being depressed at home, reading a book, having a job, eating a rotting corpse in the fridge, staring at drywall, and so much more. So in between all the investigation stuff, you can buy items in the shopping district, go to a day job and create new social links, or do anything I previously mentioned. There is an actual point to this, as you have regular school events such as quizzes, midterms, and clubs, along with most things you shop for being able to be used inside the TV world. The activities you do each day end up contributing to your overall character status, which is a visual indicator on how much your character has grown. But it serves an even greater purpose of allowing you to establish some new social links that could require courage, or talking to someone in pain with enough understanding, or understanding a fox with enough expression. The social link system also serves a purpose beyond mere storytelling, which is persona fusion. I've mentioned the term personas about thrice already in this review, and while it's more of a story aspect and not very important, I feel like I should describe what that actually is before talking about fusion. In this game, personas are physical manifestations of someone's personality and spirit used for combat purposes. They all have special and unique abilities and spells along with unique designs. They're also based off of tarot cards. I mentioned all these things out of context, but if you put it all together, in a sense, this game has fucking stands. Persona fusing is the most unique aspect of Big Dick 4's combat. Your character is unique in the sense that you can wield multiple personas. I don't know why you would, because Izanagi is a fucking badass, but you can make your build as versatile as you want in comparison to your element-specific friends. Persona fusing is enhanced by your various social links, as each S-link is related to a specific tarot arcana, meaning if you fuse a persona of that arcana, you get a significant XP boost that helps you level up your personas, gaining you more skills and quicker levels, along with being able to craft an ultimate persona of a certain arcana if you max out that specific link. Fusing personas has a considerable amount of depth that I still don't quite understand. You can fuse anywhere from 2 to 6 personas into a single new one. Each new persona fuse can inherit skills from the ones used to craft it, allowing you to create a god tier Izanagi in the late game with a repel physical and Megidala. To be fair, I didn't experiment much with skills such as Arrow Rain or anything late game like that. While this is incredibly tedious to get the right skills, it's still very entertaining to pull off. With about 120 personas in the game, it's insane to see how in-depth this fusing system is, as so many personas can mix with each other to create so many others. It's a daunting system for new players to get into, but accessible enough to enjoy, even if you don't understand it. Overall, aside from a few New Game Plus mechanics that I haven't had the privilege of experiencing, because after I finished this game I delved straight into this review script, I believe I left only minor or unnoteworthy game mechanics unmentioned. Aside from your character status carrying over, and supposedly a Reaper hunting you down that drops god tier equipment in New Game Plus, goddamn fishing, and the decision making that only really impacts your ending or how much people like you. There is nothing more within the gameplay section of Persona 4, as this game has traditional JRPG turn-based battle mechanics, but doesn't sacrifice any fun, balances all of its social aspects exquisitely, and has a handful of unique in-depth systems. The gameplay sphere earns Pineapple 4 another checkmark. When I first stumbled upon Picasso 4 in the store, I mainly recognized it because of Persona 5 and the art style associated with that game. I was kind of disappointed because I really wanted to play the 5th game, but I had no idea what I'd be getting myself into. Now, in comparison to P5, P4 may look a bit dull, but it's merely just a different aesthetic vibe altogether. I'm not here to talk about Painting 5 anymore, so let's get right into what I love about this game's art style. Everywhere from transition slides to character portraits, Persona 4 exudes a colorful modern aesthetic. I especially love the drop shadows behind the characters and the calmality of yellow. I know a font is something ridiculous to nerd out over, but goddamn, I love the title font of this game. I couldn't quite find it as it's most likely an obscure Japanese one, but I have Wobblem, so I'm good. In terms of character design, each major and minor character stands out in their portraits and models, with looks that match their personality as well. Not only are there a bunch of uniquely styled characters, there are even more uniquely styled personas. While Izanagi is still the best boy, and you shouldn't get rid of him, there are a ton of other cool or pretty persona models that look good even on the PS2 version. There are also animated cutscenes that appear periodically throughout the game at important story beats. I honestly wish they would appear more often because these cutscenes are absolutely gorgeous, even at a low resolution. The Early Awakening cutscene exemplifies this perfectly. The game is paced well enough for it to play at just the right moment of tension, and the animation is breathtaking.
And call forth what is within.
The town of Inaba, while relatively small in terms of where you can go, gives off perfect royal town vibes. The shopping district is clustered with buildings that all look like they belong there. Semagawa floodplain is small but pretty. Junes is Junes, and the school is pretty massive despite not needing to be. It's pretty damn cool, coupled with the fact that there are common townspeople wandering around each day that never look too samey, but they also don't stand out as someone important to distract you, giving you even more small rural town vibes. The dungeon designs in the TV world are all unique different worlds with usually a common theme of cool ass pulsating red and black waves that either ripple through the sky or doorways. While the interior of these dungeons are sometimes boring and repetitive, they still have nice little set pieces, and it's not that bad since you're meant to run through them quickly. Despite this, there are some really pretty areas within this world, such as Heaven and the final dungeon, both standing out from anywhere else in the game while following the same dungeon formula. Outside of the area where you can free roam, the battle arenas are all relatively similar while having slight aesthetic changes depending on the area, but all keeping the same badass pulsating red and black waves. Boss arenas aren't that special either. However, the boss designs themselves are all unique and pretty damn cool. Some bosses are eerie and menacing, while some look fucking stupid, but they're all related in design to the personalities of whoever you're saving, which is a nice subtle touch. Regular enemies, on the other hand, all draw their designs from a set of base enemy types, some types being added as you progress through the game, but all enemies are derivative of these base types. This aspect doesn't make the enemies repetitive or boring looking. It's simply a technical limitation that was handled well, as I don't expect the game to have 100 different enemy types while going above and beyond with literally everything else in the game. This is about all I have to say for P4's aesthetic. Most of the art style can speak for itself, but I feel like it's pretty enough to warrant an in-depth discussion. I adore all the character designs and would definitely find some screenshots of the in-game animations and save them as a background. I would have trouble figuring out what my favorite character is, cause they're all great in their own way, but Yukiko is our best girl. The art from the game can stand out on its own as beautiful outside of the context of the game, which I think is a pretty good indicator that this game passes the aesthetic segment. When I talk about the overall sound design of Jazz Game 4, it'll mainly be separated into two different parts, as the soundtrack deserves to be talked about on its own, as does the amazing voice acting. So let's start off with the latter. Despite being a game coming out in 2008, only 2 years after this masterpiece.
What? That really pisses me off. Oh no, what do we do? I'm so scared. Fabulous! That's great. Good for you.
All the voice characters in P4 sound great. While not every character is voiced, and not all scenes with voiced characters have audio, it's present at the most important parts and always enhances the experience. Whenever there was an emotional cutscene or important story development, I was fully sold on these characters, as they always sounded exactly how they would in their given situation.
If only I'd been more thorough in putting the facts together, then Nanako-chan wouldn't have had to go through this.
That goes for me too. If I hadn't stood there like a lump in front of that bastard, Nanako-chan might have been okay.
Alright, enough of this pity party. Is standing around and whining really what we ought to be doing now? Feeling pathetic, consoling each other? That gonna solve anything? We gotta believe in her. So stop rehashing what's already done. Get it together, Naoto!
You transported him to the same hospital? For crying out loud, he's the suspect in the case!
What are you getting mad at me for? This is the biggest hospital, and he's in no condition to be moved.
Cough it up! Where's this room?
Top floor in the 2nd surgical ward. Furthest room back.
I can't let something like that go. Someone close to me died. Her killer can't be convicted. And now I'm gonna let the same thing happen again? There's no way I can do that! It's just wrong, isn't it?
They genuinely sound realistic and emotional. It's impressive as hell and shows just how skilled and competent both the actors and directors of the game were when producing it. Shit's always way more impressive when you compare it to other PS2 games that came out only a few years ago.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
Voice acting aside, the overall sound design of Percussion 4 is sparse. You hear the occasional sound effect in a cutscene or certain battle sounds, but they're not an essential part of the experience. Sound effects in battle can be extremely satisfying at times though, such as whenever you get a critical hit and you hear a weighty beatdown or intense gunshots that make your heart jump in joy over getting a successful crit on some of those annoying as fuck enemies, making the whole attack way more impactful and of course, highly satisfying. While sound effects aren't very prevalent in gameplay, they're nearly the most important part of the animated cutscenes, as they add so much atmosphere and immersion to the scene presented. It further adds to how amazing these animations are, as they're so finely crafted. Every detail is precisely placed, not falling short in any aspect of design, sound, or music. Like I said previously, the Awakening cutscene is an excellent example of this, but there are more, such as the first TV cutscene or the Dejima car chase.
Thou art the one who opens the door.
It's high time we got into the music of Piano 4. I saved the best for last, as I love talking about soundtracks, especially for my favorite games. Like I said earlier, music makes up for a large part of the atmosphere in the animated cutscenes, but unlike the sound effects, this atmosphere extends to in-game cutscenes and any other part of the game, such as battles or simply wandering Inaba. Not only are all these tracks a joy to listen to, they also play a major role in balancing the delicate tone in P4 I established early on in the story segment. When you're investigating with your team, the lovely inquisitive tune Reasoning kicks off with percussion and smooth brass. This scene perfectly fits the mold of a shoddy team of high school detectives, and gives off a carefree vibe that helps balance out against the dark murder case you're trying to solve. You can clearly see how I adore this theme in particular, as I love listening to it whenever I'm working on something. This track in particular displays how this entire damn game is drenched in charm that drips throughout the soundtrack. The battle themes in Pianissimo 4 don't stop this trend. Reach Out to the Truth is an excellent encounter theme that never gets old no matter how many times I hear it. This track absolutely rocks. The instrumentals and the vocal harmonies match perfectly with the aesthetic of the battle arenas and the youthful vibe of the whole game. This track has a few different versions as well, which as a whole are complemented nicely by the boss theme, I'll Face Myself. There are other late game boss themes, but none of them compare to how fucking badass this one is. And while those later themes have their place and importance, I wouldn't have minded hearing this theme while kicking the final boss's ass, cause it's that goddamn great. I'll mention a few more kick-ass tracks from P4 before closing up this segment. The Velvet Room theme is a beautiful calm track that would remind me of the end themes of Dark Souls or Demon Souls if it weren't for all the instrumentals. The classical instruments and amazing solo singer absolutely sell the regal ambience of the Velvet Room. It also adds to the room's mystery. Where is the music coming from? What is the Velvet Room? Will Elden Ring ever come out? All of these questions can be prompted simply by listening to this gorgeous track. Heaven is by far the best dungeon theme in the game, maybe even one of the best in any game I've played. Well, Hollow Knight's City of Tears definitely tops it, but nevertheless, much like this dungeon it's located on, the soundtrack subverts the player's expectations by leaning more to be a relaxing track than the anxious approach of the other dungeon themes. This song feels like it belongs exactly in the place it plays, which is damn impressive as it carries the same subtle tones of melancholy and hope perfectly. It's a shame you can't hear the whole track often since it's inside of a dungeon, which is why I recommend listening to it on your own time, as I do with the rest of the soundtrack. Seriously, if you haven't played Persona 4, they're a treat to listen to. The final song I want to mention in this review is Nevermore. This track nearly brought me to tears as it's the song that plays during the true ending. Not only does Nevermore implement the melodies from various other tracks throughout the game, such as the piano music that plays from the very beginning title screen, and the brass instruments from the relaxed version of I'll Face Myself. It also, and I know at this point you're tired of hearing it from me, matches the tone of the extremely joyful but also very bittersweet ending. I cannot stress at how perfect this soundtrack is for the game. I would consider Nevermore to be my favorite track from the game as it's so emotional, especially after the long and exhausting journey Persona 4 puts you through. I absolutely adore this track, and while I would recommend you listen to it like the rest, if you plan on ever playing Persona 4, then I suggest you save it for when you finally get that sweet ending. It'll be worth it, trust me. But also, if you've never played Persona 4 and you're still here, what the fuck are you doing? The review is almost over. Go play this damn masterpiece instead of listening to me ramble on and on about a soundtrack. It's very clear this game passes sound design with flying colors. So I know I've been rambling about Persona 4 for the better half of an hour. Trust me, I'm not going to go on a massively long tangent about the Piss Boy 4 anime. I'd like to keep my thoughts somewhat concise and surface level because there's not much that the animation adds anyway. I also don't watch a lot of anime, so it's not really my thing to judge, although I still enjoy watching it. I'll start off by saying that I don't recommend watching the Persona 4 animation if you haven't played the game first, as I found the story to be much more impactful while playing through it yourself. The story is a bit faster paced than in game, so I'd say this is mostly for fans who've beaten the game and want to re-experience fight scenes or slice of life moments in anime form. That all being said, the animation does both of those two aspects very well. Fight scenes are satisfying and some boss fights have unique spins on them that differ greatly from the game. Furthermore, the slice of life moments are expanded upon and add in good bits of humor that weren't present in the base game. Both of these aspects make up for most of the worthwhile experience for someone who's already beaten the game, as they added enough content to make me want to keep watching.
Number 2. Number 2, my lap is yours.
Aside from what the animation does well, the story pacing is a bit too fast. Like I mentioned earlier, this is mostly present in the early shadow battles, as each encounter and resolution the main characters have with their other selves seems half-baked and is only really present because it has to be. You get even less character backstory during each minor character arc, and each person seems to have little to no reason to reject their shadows because of this. These are probably the least desirable parts of the animation, as they don't have much weight to them since the investigation plot hasn't gotten very thick or juicy. The only other downside being that some of the English voice actors are replaced here that were originally in the game, making it very jarring when you listen to some of these characters.
I hate myself. Why do I always panic when it matters most? Are you sure? I'm not convinced. She looked kind of different to me.
Come on, I'm totally sure. With those hips, and that sweet rack, and those beautiful legs that go on forever!
Hey, if you don't like my legs, then don't look at them.
Narukami, what do you think about this?
Her legs are fine.
Huh? No! Dude, on this, we disagree.
But there is the exclusive you vs Margaret scene, which is fucking badass, and then some very comedic moments that defo make up for these downsides. The biggest plus I'd say being that the main character is now voiced, which adds a unique dynamic to him that wasn't present in the game, and because of that, he's a fucking Chad. Add on that, Kanji putting saw on his goddamn watermelon, getting to see these best boys one more time, the music still being there, just being its own amazing goddamn self, and you got one great experience for your average Persona fan. Plus, I got to see some unique characters that I didn't find in my first playthrough, which was nice.
Man-whore! She said you're one big man-whore!
Don't go calling people horny if it isn't true!
Teddy? Big bro? Are you guys horny?
Grizzly! Persona!
Before I go on to my final thoughts, I'd like to bring up the Persona 4 Golden animation. I decided to not watch it since I didn't play the game and only knew about it after I'd binged the 26 episodes of the original animation, but goddamn, the awakening scene in this one is so fucking amazing.
汝は我己が相貌を見開きて汝今こそ発せよこの声は
何こま何事かな
お前
そんな
All those
And now we've finally made it to the last section in the Persona 4 review. If your brain hasn't already been fried, I don't know what you're still doing here, but I'll just wrap up my thoughts on the P4 experience as a whole. The game came with a bonus disc, which turned out to only be a soundtrack CD, but it's still nice nonetheless. I'd like to try out some of the spin-off games related to P4, and I'd definitely review them if I get the chance to. There wasn't much I left uncovered, other than how much this game personally impacted me. This game is incredible, as not only does the writing emulate people so well that I actually felt like I made friends, I'm very lonely. But at the end of it all, I truly felt like I grew to be a better person. Even though these are virtual people, the decisions I made have stuck with me, and I feel like I can understand people on somewhat of a deeper level, which is truly magnificent. There hasn't been any other game I've played that's had this kind of impact on me before. Like I said, the ending of this game was almost enough to make me cry, while it wasn't even a sad ending. I felt so much genuine emotion from the true ending of P4, and the bittersweet feeling of leaving all of my connections to these virtual friends while that beautiful ending theme played. All while I'm reliving the experiences as the game finally wraps itself up into a wonderful present. I love this masterpiece. Thank you so much for watching my ridiculously long analysis on Persona 4. This video took me a hell of a long time to make, which is why I've been gone for so long. To be fair, there was 3 weeks when I hadn't had any video ideas, but fuck, I dropped my phone. But then it took me another 2 weeks to finish the game, and here we are now. I honestly cannot believe if anybody would watch this far into the video. I honestly, truly appreciate it if you're watching this much. Thank you so much. Anyways, I'm off to play some more games and eventually come up with a new video to make. Let me know with a comment if you've got this far, and if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, as I'm planning on most of my content to revolve around this type of review stuff. Besides that, see you next time.
She